Good morning and welcome to Market Insights. I am Lovina Emah. Today we are discussing a crucial topic, and that's the long-term strategies for climate, nature and energy. Now, as business leaders and policy makers gather to address the climate crisis at the Future Investment Initiative Institute, which is organizing the annual Davos in the desert each October in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Now, one thing is clear: our future depends on sustainable solutions. Now, the eighth Future Investment Initiative is slated for October 29 to 31, 2024, with the theme Infinite Horizons: Investing Today, Tomorrow, and also Shaping Tomorrow. Now, FII, that's Future Investment Initiative, is a global non-profit organization that is governed by a board of trustees appointed by the Saudi royal decree. So there is an urgent need for long-term strategy to address climate change and protect our natural world and transition to sustainable energy sources. Now, the numbers, as we have seen, is staggering. We have 1.5 degrees Celsius, that's the critical temperature and threshold to avoid catastrophic climate change. Next up is the deadline for achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as of 2030. And finally, we need over $1 trillion globally. That's the estimated annual investment needed for global renewable energy. But it's not just about the numbers, it's people, planet and prosperity. Now, you may be thinking, climate change, sustainability, it all sounds a bit, doom and gloom. But let's be clear, this isn't just about saving our planet, it's about securing our future, a future where our businesses thrive and our economies grow and our communities flourish. We've heard about extreme weather events affecting people in different parts of the world, especially the hurricanes in the United States of America and also in the dry parts of the world, like in Saudi Arabia and in other Middle Eastern countries. Now, these are no longer long-distance threats. They are impacting communities, but there's something we can do to change all of this. So as consumers become more eco-conscious and companies that are not seen as part of the solution, they also risk losing consumers and a very wide market. So we all have to come together and be aware of the situation that climate change offers and how to adapt to it and how to also protect ourselves from it and continue to flourish in our world. So what does a long-term strategy look like? So this morning, we're going to be hearing from our experts that will be joining us virtually to address each issues such as climate resilience, that's how we can adopt, how we can adapt infrastructure and supply chains to this climate change, clean energy transitions, scaling up renewables and energy storage, policy framework, creating the right kind of policy framework that will support sustainable growth. Now, what can we achieve with in a net zero future? What are the opportunities and challenges? These are the questions that our guests will be answering. So join us after the break for an in-depth analysis into these issues. Welcome back to the program, and thank you for watching the program as we discuss the long-term strategies for climate, nature and energy. So we have two guests that will join us virtually for this discussion. The first is Dr. Patrick Basham. He joins us live from Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, but there's a bit of a network issue from his end, so he will join us shortly. And we also have another guest that will be joining us. That's Simon Ibrahim Achi. Simon Ibrahim Achi is He's an accomplished monitoring and evaluation expert and a development research specialist with over 6 years of experience managing agriculture climate change projects. Now, Simon's expertise encompasses designing and implementing M&E frameworks, data analysis, research methodologies, and he's a stakeholder in all of this. Now, his network, or rather his work, emphasizes enhancing resilience in agriculture, contributing to food security, and implementing climate-smart practices across various regions in Nigeria. So thank you for joining us this morning on Market Insights, Simon Ibrahim Achi.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Ibrahim Achi. Okay, Okay, that's good to hear. So now I'm glad you can join us as we discuss climate change and also long-term strategies for addressing these issues in climate change and also renewable energy and nature. Now, looking at this whole scenario now, what are the key strategies that you suggest for adapting to climate change? Let's start with that first.
Okay, so thank you for this question. So you kind of try to understand the general subject matter from the perspective of trying to understand what even brought us to this point of climate change discussion. Trying to look at the general aspects that has to do with human living. It is a major concern for every human being to consider this subject matter, being the fact that 2023 happens to be one of the hottest year, as everyone know, with about 1.5 temperature generally on the global aspect. And then, so the strategies to just consider, they are quite numerous, but they are outlined for every industry as well as nation to adopt. So you have technological strategy, as well as you have the nature perspective strategy. Okay, so for the technological strategy, you have to consider how you can be able to manage the whole environment with the renewable energy. So that is number one. So you kind of look at how renewable energy can be used in terms of lightening, in terms of industrial usage and other activity that concerns human. And the other aspect, again, that has to do with the technological aspect has to do with how modern equipment in various industry can be energy efficient. So before the discussion of climate change, there are a lot of equipment in various industries that are archaic in nature. They consume a lot of energy, they emit a lot of carbon dioxide, methane, and also they kind of combust a lot. So you kind of adopt a strategy where you can have a technology where this particular inert gases that are being emitted into the atmosphere are kind of curtailed. I can cite an example. A country like Iceland has adopted a strategy that has to do with direct air capturing. So where you have a lot of industries that emit carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, they have another equipment that can be able to kind of capture this carbon dioxide and utilize them. As well as Canada has also kind of used this strategy in terms of their coal burning. So they kind of try to use some kind of equipment that they can be able to kind of utilize this burning to a positive aspect. So there are a lot of strategies that has to do with technology. For the nature aspect, it has to do with countries adopting climate smart agriculture practices where farmers are being sensitized on areas that they can be able to kind of plant their crops and practice the agricultural practice without invoking harm into the environment. In the course of cultivation, you have a lot of chemicals that are being used and all that. So farmers are also being sensitized in that regard. Another aspect that has to do with nature perspective has to do with tree plantings as well. Since we all know tree has a good condition of releasing, good air into the environment, as in oxygen to be precise. So countries as well as human generally are being encouraged not to involve themselves into illegal cutting down of trees. Rather, they are being encouraged to plant a lot of trees. So we have the technological aspect where we can be able to adopt a good strategy, and then we have the nature's perspective as well.
Okay, thank you for sharing this with us. Now, let's talk about Nigeria. We've seen cases of during the rainy season, a lot of communities get flooded, farmlands get flooded, also affecting people's way of lives. And it seems that we are always not prepared for the rainy season and also the dry season, which we're about to enter in a few weeks' time now. So now, how can we here in Nigeria, how can we prepare for this climate change? How can we adapt to it more efficiently? And also, how can businesses prioritize climate risk management?
Okay, so if I'm to dissect this question, I have to like categorize it into two sections. So it has to do with the first part, which has to do with how can we be able to kind of manage this climate change aspect in Nigeria, as well as the financial aspect. So in terms of the financial aspects, financial institutions can be able to kind of prioritize their capital in investing in climate change equipment. So if I come in form of an investor, I want to invest into a particular sector of the economy and I need a loan from financial institutions, then they have to kind of profile and understand what I'm going to use it for. So if I'm going to use it for in a way where it can endanger the environment and emit a lot of carbon dioxide, methane, and other nitrous oxide, then they have to kind of reveal to me that, okay, oh, why can't you be able to kind of channel these resources to this particular aspect? So financial institution can also form as a middle party to kind of curtail and give proper advice where we can where investors can also make use of. In terms of agriculture, it's more of like advocacy. A lot of farmers are not aware of some of these things that are happening, though they will get to see the consequences when it is raining season. They don't get frequent rainfall, irregular rainfall is happening, and also flood and all manner of environmental hazard. So farmers can be sensitized on their practices where they can be able to manage some of the things they do, the chemical they kind of spray to their crops and all that. So they can be able to know which kind of species to also use that they can get efficient outputs at the end of the day. I think that will really help.
Would you advise our government or basically our leaders here to be able to prepare people to adapt to climate change here in Nigeria? And particularly, I'm looking at you as an agricultural expert with in terms of managing this climate change, and also in agriculture. I'm sure you speak with a lot of farmers and agriculturalists. So what are your thoughts on this?
Sorry, can you come again, please?
What would you advise our leaders here in Nigeria in terms to enlighten people on how to protect themselves more efficiently, and also as a research expert and agricultural expert also, I'm sure you interact with farmers and people in the agriculture sector. So what are your thoughts on this to prepare them better for the climate change, whether it's extreme weathers like rainy season or the dry season?
Okay, so one of the easiest way that that can come to be, you know, farmers are having this kind of attitude where we can term it as gerontocracy, where they kind of listen a lot to some of the elder farmers. Okay, so and where you can get these elder farmers is through the cooperative agencies. So one of the ways that we can be able to kind of encourage farmers to know and to practice climate smart agriculture, which would be friendly to the environment, is through this channel. First, you meet the elder farmers and reveal to them the importance of them having a proper agricultural practice, introduce them to the recent trends that has to do with the modern aspect of cultivation, modern aspect of agricultural practices. Okay, if you do this, this is what is going to cost to the environment. If you use this chemical, it will have an harmful effect to the environment, aside to the water pollution and all that. So when that is done and properly utilized, they quickly adapt to that. Another channel again that can be also done effectively is through the religious leaders. You know, we shy away from discussing this through the religious leaders, but it's very important. Even in our religious gatherings, this can be reviewed where, you know, averagely within 10 Nigerians, you find out that not less than 6 to 7 people are already practicing agriculture or farming. So when that is done, it equips them to understand that their practices has a positive or negative consequences to the environment. By so doing, it will kind of give us a better environment, and as well as we'll have a cleaner environment to live on. So I think these are some of the things that can be adopted, where we can be able to have a proper environment that is having less of climate change negative impact.
Now, as just to inform our viewers, the purpose of this whole discussion is because of the current Future Investment Initiative Institute. They're having an annual conference on climate change called Davos in the Desert, and it's taking place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Now, these clean energy transitions that you mentioned, now, what are the latest advancements in renewable energy?
So the latest advancement in renewable energy, even though as an innovation keeps on then coming up, we have renewable energy in terms of solar energy. Countries don't so much rely on the general hydro, though hydro is also a renewable energy, but you have a more cleaner energy in terms of solar energy. You also have that is what we call green hydrogen. So green hydrogen is another form of renewable energy where water is being used, as in it's kind of energy is being derived from the splitting of hydrogen and oxygen to generate power. A lot of countries in Netherlands, Germany, a lot of countries in South Korea make use of green hydrogen. I would say Australia, to be precise, partner with Japan and South Korea to kind of supply them with green hydrogen facilities. So these green hydrogen facilities has the capacity to power big industry, where you have less consumption of energy and also less emission of carbon dioxide as well. And then promotion of other captured, what we call direct air capturing, as well as post-combustion capturing. These practices, they are more of the modern aspect that has to do with the capturing of carbon dioxide as it is being released immediately into the air. There is an equipment that captures these gases and neutralizes them. Post-combustion is used in Canada. I think Climework industry, yes, Climework industry in Iceland also make use of that. And then there is another industry that I can't remember now, but make use of the post-combustion capturing of carbon dioxide. So when these are being put in place, definitely as the carbon dioxide is being released into the air, though we don't encourage that, but in a case where the practice of carbon dioxide is being carried out, you kind of have an equipment that can easily neutralize it and makes the environment safer and cleaner for human to live.
It's very interesting, capturing carbon dioxide and using it for renewable energy, because we know we breathe in oxygen and we breathe out carbon dioxide, and the trees and the plants also use carbon dioxide. But here in Nigeria, how can we use, we're blessed with a lot of natural resources, like we have a lot of sunlight here, we have our rainfall also is in large quantities too. So now how can we tap into this renewable energy to also benefit us here in Nigeria, or better still, the natural resources that we have? How do we use it to benefit us here in Nigeria?
Which is the hydro energy. In Nigeria, we can diversify. We so much rely on, without that, the country always gets into chaos and all that. So we can practice the green hydrogen as well, get experts that can be able to kind of train as well as educate some of our experts locally, and then get the facilities needed. Let's try to start from somewhere. Starting from somewhere will lead us to a bigger perspective where we can be able to kind of adopt this particular approach in a bigger way. And then the energy aspect that has to do with the solar, is what we also need to encourage as well. A lot of Nigerians, a lot of Nigerians, once we don't have lights, we either on our generator, which emits a lot of carbon dioxide, we don't resort to using solar. So, and we are blessed with sunray. So we can adopt solar, encourage it in every nooks and crannies of Nigeria. Rural communities can practice the uses of solar, which is quite cost effective as well as energy efficient and also friendly to the environment. And we can also practice the geothermal. There is a renewable energy that is called geothermal, where energy can be obtained from the earth crust. Kenya, to be precise, has been practicing this geothermal. Italy has also been practicing it. Other countries of the world, Italy, Kenya have been practicing this geothermal, where energy is being sourced from the earth crust and powered big industries. So we can explore these alternatives: solar, wind, geothermal. They are all options that we can be able to utilize in sourcing for energy as well as utilization of energy. But I will top solar. Solar is very good.
Okay, we're still going to discuss on them further on this nature-based solutions. But before we do that, let's take a look at the conference taking place in Saudi Arabia right now, in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, the Future Investment Initiative Institute that has organized the 8th edition of Davos in the Desert. So let's take a look at what's happening in the conference.
All of our 5 speakers, just to give me one wish, something that could help this energy transition, whatever energy it is, and that could maybe overcome one of the barriers. What is your one wish that you would have?
Yeah, well, by the way, you talk about energy, but also in Africa is about water, and we see it increasingly. And I think I would like to take the example of another developing country, that is Uzbekistan. So what I observed there is that we really achieve the speed through leadership with a clear vision, dialogue with investors, and then quick decisions to make things happen. And that is a catalyst for investors.
Right now is integrity questions. And without technology, without standardization between different standard setters, without the United Nations and Article 6 coming with standardization, that would not enable to de-risk projects and enable finance in these projects that are very important, not only to countries and removing CO2 or the atmosphere, but to communities. And this is something we should not forget about. The carbon credit offset, each credit has got a story behind it and has got a community and co-benefits behind it. So this is very important.
All of our 5 speakers.
Okay, that was just a brief clip from the conference taking place. That's the Future Investment Initiative conference taking place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And the conference is all about climate change. It's called Davos in the Desert. This is the 8th edition organized by FII, that's Future Investment Initiative Institute. So every year they organize this conference to create more awareness on climate change. And my guest, Mr. Simon Ibrahim, actually has been sharing a lot of insights into how we can prepare better for climate change and how we can also tap into nature and use these natural resources that we have here in Nigeria and in other parts of the world. He shared how they're using natural resources as a source of energy. So Mr. Simon Ibrahim Achi, are you here with us? Okay, glad to know that you're still here with us now. Okay, now looking at our country now, let's start with Nigeria before we talk about other countries of the world now. How can policy makers support the growth of using nature, or rather tapping into natural resources as a source of renewable energy? How can it be more affordable for our citizens to use regularly?
Okay, so thank you very much for this question. 2 ways that we can enforce, or rather we can kind of implement this. So policymakers can do this in 2 ways. One, there are countries that has a lot of industry, and these industries emit a lot of carbon dioxide, right? So when these carbon dioxide are released, these industries that practice these activities are being taxed in a higher way. Okay, so since they are gaining from what they are doing while causing negative externality to people around, the tax are being used for the cleaning of the environment. So I would say policymakers can be able to devise a means where if you're to practice any activity, you have to report this activity to an institution where your activity will be scrutinized and be sure it is environmental friendly. That's one. Secondly, advocacy as well as investment in renewable energy is required. This has to do with a lot of investment. The countries I've mentioned, countries like Iceland, countries like Germany, Netherlands, including Kenya, got to where they are through investment. So we can't leave this to private individuals. Private individuals has so much that they are after profit, they are after also making, even though there are CSR that they do perform, but we can't leave this to private individuals. So policymakers can enforce this through making sure that when any industry is practicing any activity, there is an agency that can be able to kind of scrutinize the activity and know that it is climate friendly. And if you're being practicing already, then there will be heavy tax on you so that when your equipment packs off, you can be able to replace it with a renewable or energy saving equipment, which is quite friendly to the environment as well. So I think these two ways policymakers can adopt, and it will be very, very good for a country like Nigeria. As our population continues to grow, it is inevitable for us not to go into industrialization so much.
Okay, in addition to that now, effective policy frameworks are very important also. Now, what policies can drive sustainable growth?
Okay, so policies that can drive sustainable growth, we're talking about growth that is sustainable, which consequently leads to development. So policies that can drive sustainable growth has to do with human-centered policies. So policies that can improve the living standard of human, policies that are friendly to market players, policies that are friendly to our environment as well. So this put together leads to human development. So when we have policies that are outside of these three thematic points, it will be difficult for us to arrive at growth that we desire. So we have to start with framework. As an MIE expert, definitely you have to have a framework, and then you have to be religious about the framework, monitor the framework to see how it's been performing, try to juxtapose some of the activities that have been implemented previous year and also the current year, try to see some of the gaps and all that. So by so doing, it will really help to track the growth. If a country like Nigeria is not growing, we can be able to quickly understand the areas that we need to improve on through the tracking of our implementation processes. So it's very important for every country to have a target of growth, as well as have a framework that this growth can be achieved. By so doing, it becomes a bit easier backing it together with resources. We can't do this without resources. Resources in terms of human capital, in terms of financial resources, and other in-kind resources, partnership with international countries as well. So it can really go a long way to help us to grow. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so a lot of investment will be needed for us to be able to achieve, to ensure that this policy framework is put in practice, and that's very important. Okay, now the focus of Davos in the desert this year, the 8th edition, the energy transition. That's a very big focus at this year's conference now. So what are the most promising developments or technologies helping us to shift away from fossil fuels?
Okay, so like I made mention earlier, there are promising technologies that are already in practice, equipment that are energy saving. For example, most of the advice for people that make use of AC, you have to kind of use AC that is energy saving, that's inverter ACs. There are also equipments that are also less carbon. They emit less carbon. So technology is gradually gravitating towards that area of producing equipment, producing machines that emit lesser carbon dioxide. Our cars, presently we have electric cars, which emit lesser energy, carbon dioxide to the air. We also have a lot of machines that are carbon dioxide less. And these are some of the modern technologies that already are in place to see that carbon dioxide emission is curtailed in a minimal way. Another aspect, again, that has to do with the technology aspect is how machines are being used to kind of rate the degree at which an area is being saturated with carbon dioxide. So, areas, for example, in Nigeria, let me use an example. We know Lagos is having a lot of industries that one activity or the other always takes place and carbon dioxide is being released, as well as some part of the country that's refining of oil also do take place. So areas like that are always being advised and also being checked to see that the rate at which carbon dioxide is being emitted is minimized. So these are some of the modern aspects that are being put in place to see that carbon dioxide emission is minimized.
Okay, that's yes, that's very true. Actually, everything you have said right now. Now, I'm looking at the financial implications of this whole scenario. What are the financial implications for businesses adapting to climate change right now?
So, financial implication, businesses are so sensitive now. Before financial institution will give out loan, like I said, they would definitely have to kind of understand if this activity is friendly to the environment. So if it is not friendly, I know of some financial institutions that encourage solar, as in you can go to the financial institution, apply, and they have a set of team that will come to install solar. These are encouraging to every Nigeria. This practice is very, very good for a country like Nigeria. Like I said, Nigeria is blessed with, solar is an avenue that we can utilize the usage of our energy, as well as other aspects that we talked about earlier. So financial institution can guide investors and also give out loan in areas that promote climate-friendly activities.
Okay. Now, still on the business aspect of this, or rather the impact on businesses. Now, how can, or rather, what are the economic benefits of investing in nature-based solutions to adapt to climate change?
Okay, so nature-based solutions, like I said, we have the technology as well as the nature-based. So nature-based solution is it has a longer impact in the environment. For example, tree planting is one of the nature-based solution that we can adopt. When you plant a tree can last for over 20, 50, 60 years. It all depends. Also, there are other nature-based solutions that we can also promote, which has a positive impact to the environment. Aside the desertification that we can enjoy from, it has a way of conserving the temperature, as in the surface temperature of the soil, trying to kind of retain some of the heat that are being emitted from the earth into the atmosphere, which I think one of the causes of the 2023 being the hottest year relative to 2016. So these are some of the emphasis that are being said in Davos. Nature base is very critical. It costs less. For one to plant 3, it doesn't cost much, unlike the technological aspects. So encouragement needs to be made in that regard, so that we can have a lot of nature-based solutions, and that will really help to maintain our environment and give us a cleaner environment.
Let me just say this briefly. I'm sorry to interrupt your thoughts right now. For example, let's picture a scenario where a carpenter that makes furniture, you know, he would need wood, and wood is gotten from trees. So now how can such a person running that furniture business and hearing all the, we need trees for our planet to protect us from the heat of the sun. So how can that business thrive with climate change affecting everybody right now? So now looking at that kind of business that requires the use of trees, how can, or rather people in that line of business, how can they reduce their impacts on deforestation and land degradation?
Okay, so it has always been encouraged, as I've practiced agriculture, it's been encouraged that when you cut down 3, then you have to replace it with not less than 3 of the trees. So, tree planting is very important. As we know, the furniture, people make use of it in their businesses and other activities that have to do with wood. So, we can't deny the fact that we will not make use of wood because we are going to cut down trees, right? So we have this understanding that we get wood from trees. So we encourage more of the planting of trees, and we also encourage sustainability, whereby a carpenter, when he produces those furniture, he produces it in a higher quality way that it can last for a long time, and also encourage the consumer of that material to have a kind of a freedom of repairs. Not that when you have a breakage or you kind of throw it and you want to renew again. So avenue of you trying to kind of get another set of furnitures quickly, because the furniture that you have obtained previously do not last for a long time. So we encourage that aspect as well, so that there will be sustainability. It will take time for one to demand for another wood, and also room for repair, and also room for recycling as well, where some of these woods can be recycled to another form of furniture without necessarily demanding fresh woods from the forest. So these are some of the ways that can also help to minimize the consumption of wood. But the major aspect has to do with the tree planting. And it is not the furniture man or furniture person that would do that. It has to do with government conscious intervention, private sector interventions, and NGOs as well.
Okay, so you're saying, for instance, in the case of recycling, now a lot of, for example, in case of this business, like the furniture business, for example, a lot of recycling needs to take place. Like, do you know of anybody who is doing this kind of thing, recycling to achieve this goal? I just want to get your thoughts on this.
Yes, so I mean recycling, not in case of not in area of like trying to destroy the wood for you to create something. Is trying to kind of use the pieces of the wood to create another structure. Okay, so you have a lot of furnitures that are dilapidated. So you kind of encourage how some of these furnitures can be used to create another form of furniture. So this aspect will kind of help to reduce the consumption of woods by the carpenter and wood users as well. A lot of them, I don't want to mention names here, but a lot of them are currently available, and they also give the opportunity of repair as well, so that when you have your woods or you have your furniture having some issues or some problem, you kind of call for repair, and also you have the avenue of recycling.
Can you just touch on this briefly? Now, how can consumers make informed choices about sustainable products and services? Mr. Simon? Okay, I said, how can consumers make informed choices about sustainable products and services?
Okay, so consumer can make informed choices by one, making sure that they buy what they want, and they are not being cajoled by the seller. Sometimes the sellers usually have a way of kind of trying to sell their market, so they convince buyers to buy what at the end of the day they don't need. So consumer has to make their own choices, and making the right choices is very important. Trying to also try to understand your product, what I am buying, how quality it is. Okay, so what is the degree of the quality of the product I am to buy will also help me to kind of inform the person producing to also do a better work. So producers as well as consumers can guide each other. Producers can also encourage a consumer or a buyer of a product by telling him that, no, please don't go for this, go for this particular product because it will last longer. These are the components that are being put in place to produce this product, and it will last longer before you replacing or kind of recycling them. So a producer can help in that regard as well. But majorly, a consumer needs to make his own research to understand what he wants and how the quality of what he wants is. That will really help him to get a good product.
Enlightenment and education is needed on the part of the consumer. Okay, finally, and before we round up the program now, how can international cooperation accelerate climate action, especially with the Davos in the Desert conference going on right now? So your thoughts on this, Mr. Simon?
So international bodies, we have Davos currently going on. They can have this partnership. Like I mentioned, there's a partnership that exists between Australia, Japan, and South Korea in terms of green and hydrogen. So countries can have a common goal. Okay, this is a general problem globally. So countries come together, have a target, and also support each other, thereby raising. There are communities or there are countries that are lesser in technology, while there are countries that have more advantage in terms of technology. How can they be able to kind of assist each other to achieve this goal? So partnership is one of the common way that can be done, and then these targets can be achieved. So it's very important for partnership, for conferences, and this can be achieved in no distant time.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on this issue, on long-term strategies for climate, nature, and energy. Mr. Simon Ibrahim Achi, it was really great having you on the program this morning, and we look forward again to having you on Market Insights. Thank you. Now let's look at the money markets this morning for
Thank you so much.
Wednesday, 30th October 2024. We're going to look at the Central Bank of Nigeria rates and the parallel markets rates for the selling rates of the dollars, pound sterling, and euro. So for this morning, on Wednesday, 30th October, the dollar is currently selling at 1,620 naira. That's the CBN rate, and the parallel market rate is 1,748 naira. So the parallel market rate is higher than the CBN rate. For the pound sterling, the CBN selling rate is 2,133 naira to 1 pound sterling. The parallel market is 2,260 naira to 1 pound sterling, and the parallel market figures are higher than the CBN figures for the pound sterling. Now for the euro, the selling rate at CBN is 1,777 naira to 1 euro. At the parallel market, it is 1,855 naira to 1 euro. So those are our money market figures this morning. Thank you so much for watching the program Market Insights as we discussed long-term strategies for climate change, nature, and energy. And our guest, Mr. Simon Ibrahim, actually shared his insights on how we can adapt and also how businesses can adapt and also how the government and policy makers need to make the right kind of practical policies that will be put to work and also help people, help communities to flourish in the midst of all this climate change. Many thanks for watching the program Market Insights. I am your host, Lovina Emah. Do stay tuned to the news update on SOUQ News Television.